the people in authority have lost their authority, and they want to project that out to us as if the problem is not with them, it's with the people. What is wrong with the people that they no longer trust the authorities? They're ignorant and these are savages and they're MAGA and they're right wing. No, how long do you think you can be wrong about everything before the people lose faith in authority? And maybe sometimes you're right, but just as often you're wrong, maybe more often, and particularly when it counts. Look at Jim Cramer. There is a reverse Jim Cramer ETF where anything he recommends, the ETF does the opposite. And you know what? They do very well. They do very well. Anything that he says to buy, they short it. If he says don't buy it, they buy it. And the ETF does really well. And yet this guy chugs along year after year after year on TV. So we have a clip of him just absolutely praising Sam Bankman-Fried, who it's looking like is going to make Bernie Madoff look like a piker who stole a little lunch money by the time the collapse of FTX is over.
J.P. Morgan of this generation, Sam Bankman-Fried's FTX,
yes,
is slashing everybody's margin, and average fees per transaction across the industry have declined by 50%. A lot of that is the man, Sam Bankman-Fried.
He called him the J.P. Morgan of our times, the J.P. Morgan of our times. This is in an industry that Cramer clearly barely understands. Jim Cramer, many times, I've seen a lot of Jim Cramer. Many times he has described crypto as a speculative instrument. He's expressed a certain amount of skepticism about it. So what the fuck are you doing playing this up? Don't you think that's going to sucker people into investing in this? He goes on, I'm trying to, hey, what's his motto? Some people are trying to make friends. I'm just trying to make you some money. So this is the advice you give people. Your whole brand is that you're supposed to be helping amateur investors to beat the market, to do better than they would do just doing a standard 60-40 401k, right? That's your whole premise. And you're encouraging them to get into something very sketchy run by some fucking 30-year-old in flip-flops. And I'm not saying the 30-year-old in flip-flops part necessarily is a deal breaker. But you know what? I watched sometime, I'm not sure who had a segment on it. It might have been Tucker Carlson. Carlson definitely did a segment on this. They found a guy who has like no subscribers on YouTube. Just one of these guys doing an economics channel, just like political channels. There are a million of those channels where people go on. For some reason, British people seem to really like to do these economics channels. I don't know why. This guy's British. And he said, FTX doesn't make any sense. And if you look at the way that Sam Bankman-Fried answers questions about where the money's coming from, he never really has a good answer. That is a complete house of cards. How the fuck did this guy see it? This guy saw it. And these financial experts didn't see it. There's some guy with 1,000 subscribers on YouTube saw this.
To me, this seems like one of these issues where the less you know about it, the almost better off you are to make the right decision. Because instinctively, it's called cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency. By definition, there's no asset there. There's no tangible asset there. So how could it possibly be a safe investment? Almost by definition, it cannot be a safe investment. And now it's shocking that the guy peddling cryptocurrency turned out to be a fraud. Would you buy your wife a diamond ring from Fugazi Jewelers and then say, "Oh my God, I got ripped off." Who could have seen that coming? I mean, it's a fake business.
What he was doing, though,
by definition, you just need to know English. You don't need to know finance.
Okay, but that would be just honest tomfoolery. He had a whole hedge fund set up where he was using his clients' hedge fund
on top
money.
of that, he had a whole Madoff thing going. Yeah.
He had a whole Ponzi scheme going, where classic Ponzi scheme, taking the investors' money to pay out the older investors and making it look like there was all kinds of money coming in. He was mixing up money in a way they're having a very hard time now figuring out what happened. They brought in, I forget his name now, but he was brought in to untangle Enron when Enron collapsed. And so this is a guy who went through Enron's books, and he's saying, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen such a total failure of corporate responsibility and record keeping and guardrails. Like, you just can't tell what happened here, where the money went. It looks like just literally a bunch of kids went hog wild with other people's money.
Well, I mean, look, so much of the economy now is about borrowing money and selling fake money. I mean, it's all just numbers on a screen. Right. There are very few tangible assets in the modern economy right now, which is like even the tycoons of the past, whether it was oil, right, or railroads, at least those were things. Those were goods. Those were tangible. Those existed. Those were analog. It took people to produce them, which means there was some promise of shared prosperity. Now, that's not to say there wasn't massive exploitation involved and horrible injustice. I mean, this is a socialist show. I'm obviously not going to sing the praises of the old industry barons of old, but at least there was, inherent to the enterprise.
God damn it, back then you put in a hard day's work for a hard day's pay. You went down to the steel mine, and if you died, you died. If you lived, you made a living.
Well, right. Well, look, that's what I mean. Like, I don't want to romanticize it, but like inherent to the enterprise was a certain infrastructure that at least created the possibility for an economy, an actually organic economy based on the production and distribution of stuff, of things, right? Here, you don't have that. Here, you have, all you have to do to get rich now is convince a bunch of other rich douchebags to invest in you. You don't have to have anything. Exhibit B. One more Jim Cramer interview that I want to cut to right now.
I usually don't do this.
Does she look familiar to anybody?
And what he did for computing. I regard you as a visionary next generation person.
This is Elizabeth Holmes.
Is this the kind of ridiculous pressure that nobody needs?
Who never had blood testing technology that worked. All she did was convince enough rich people to invest in her because she went on shows like this and she impressed people.
He looks like a fucking moron. Look at him right now.
Exactly. Here, let's just show
Steve Jobs was. I don't think
this is them singing the praises of Steve Jobs, another bona fide psychopath. All right, but anyway,
regard you as a visionary next generation person. Is this the kind of ridiculous pressure that nobody needs?
Steve Jobs was. I don't think there is another Steve Jobs. He was a phenomenal entrepreneur. We've got an incredible opportunity to try to uphold a legacy in Silicon Valley of changing the world. And
disrupting the world.
We're working 24/7 to do it.
Well, I understand that's exactly how you work. That's Elizabeth Holmes. She's the Theranos founder and CEO. Congratulations on all the success you've had, and I sure hope you win.
Well, it's a privilege to be here. Thank you.
another one for the time capsule.
Nobody asked any questions about how it's amazing, about how a fucking 19-year-old Stanford dropout was revolutionizing blood testing. And there were hematologists and experts in the field who were saying what she's claiming is fucking impossible. Nobody asked any questions. Like, nobody demanded to take the machine off site and have it tested by legitimate scientists who had no interest in the company.
Here's her spread, amazing. The next Steve Jobs, right? All the finance rags, the next Steve Jobs. And look, another point of comparison here. Sam Bankman-Fried, Fortune magazine, the next Warren Buffett, right? You see how these just con artists are just idolized by this culture. This is a culture of just douchebaggery. It's a culture of shallowness. It's a culture of move fast, break things, be a disruptor, go as fast as you can, rake the money in as fast as you can, worry about delivering later. That's not the point. Making a product or a service that people want and need is no longer the point. You get rich on speculation now.
Right.
And so these people are all the same. They're all the same. It's the same thing. And by the way, I'll just say, I feel bad to a certain extent for some of the people who got suckered in by all the celebrity endorsers and the hype.
Look,
Tom
Jim
Brady
Cramer
lost his shirt on this. Fuck him.
JP Morgan.
Yeah, right? Larry David, sorry, fuck him. I love Larry David. Seinfeld is, to me, one of the major works of art the human race has ever produced, so I'll always have a warm spot in my heart for Larry over that. But sorry, man, you're worth $500 million. You fucking start peddling this shit. What, a Super Bowl ad? They give you a few $100,000, and you get in on this little fucking scam, whether willingly or not. It's like, fuck you guys. It's like, seriously, fuck you guys. Again, this is just a douchey culture full of douchey people who are just in it to make a quick buck. That is it. That's the only point of it. It's the only point of it. All Holmes ever cared about was being known as the next Steve Jobs. And she bought into all the identity politics shit, right? About how she was a woman breaking into this field. It was all narcissism and ego and greed. She didn't care whether the shit worked at the end of the day. She knew the shit didn't work and she was pushing it anyway, even as people were getting faulty test results and getting sicker because of it. They were
sending the tests out to Walmart.
Yeah. Walgreens, I believe it was.
Walgreens.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Just didn't care. This is the level of sociopathy involved with these people. And, I think Musk is basically one of these people, to link these two segments. Not that, he's doing the same amount of harm in Twitter, but it's the same thing. It's all the same thing.
Yes, but his businesses are not smoke screens.
Well, right. There's actually is a Tesla car.
Yeah, they're just and one of our listeners pointed out, and yes, this is what was happening. He had a hedge fund, Alameda, that he was using for his speculation. He was taking money out of FTX and putting it into his hedge fund and speculating through the hedge fund with clients' deposits. And who he put in charge of the hedge fund? His ex-girlfriend, who tweeted out about how life is so much more interesting on methamphetamines. You can't make this shit up. Yeah. you really can't make this shit up. I saw an interview with her where they were asking her how much her math degree factored into her job. And she just burst out laughing. Not at all. Not at all. I'm wondering, when you first start, it's you lose $1,000 and you're like, oh my God, I'm not sure what story I should tell you about a time I lost a lot of money, but it's like amazing, man. Jim Cramer, there was one video I was looking at as research for this segment. I don't know how the guy found it because it's been pulled down everywhere. There's a very infamous segment before Jim Cramer had a show of him straight out explaining how, as a hedge fund manager, you manipulate the market to make money. He gets into all this detail, like, you call up some of your contacts in the press. You say, the profits are down in the factories in China that make the Apple components, and then you short Apple. And you short Apple, and then you make a call the next week. Oh, the Apple phones are up, and then you dump the short. It's a nice little game you can play. He just fucking lays it all out, man. He lays it all out. That's why you can't find that. One guy on YouTube I found when I was researching this had a piece of that clip in his video about Jim Cramer. But yeah, no, he's a fucking scumbag. And to me, this is why I keep coming back to him. As we can see from those magazine covers, he's certainly not alone.
Right, exactly.
But no one is more emblematic of failing up and being part of just a corrupt establishment that cannot be trusted in every field.
Well, also, I mean, this Sam Bankman-Fried guy was on the verge of achieving mega donor status on Capitol Hill. Donated boatloads of money to mostly Democrats. In fact, 9 of the Democrats who are now going to be investigating him are recipients of his donor money.
The check's already cleared. Fuck it.
Right. And so he ingratiated himself directly with the political leadership. And,
also
this is
donated,
where,
donated money to media. He donated money
the whole
to
thing
Vox,
was,
to The Intercept, to, what's it called? ProPublica got money from them.
Effective altruism, he calls it, right?
Effective altruism.
That's not his term. That's been around, but that's
Yeah, I mean, it's basically he is Exhibit A of what. Well, actually, I mean, he's worse than this. But Anand Giridharadas wrote an entire book, Winners Take All, about what a crock of bullshit this is. How people like Bill Gates use these philanthropic gestures to keep society from taxing them. Basically, effective altruism is putting forward the argument, no, we should get all the money because we can help society more effectively than the government can.
Right. The idea that the elites
it's Ayn Rand philosophy.
World. Right.
I mean, it's that story I told on another episode about Hutchinson Persons who started Street News, which I'm not going to get into again, but I knew somebody who had a whole effort to solve homelessness that was all built around the premise of hyper capitalism, of demonstrating that no, I can solve it by making a lot of money. That's essentially what it is. And Bankman-Fried tied himself into that myth and really played it to the hilt, probably beyond what anybody else has ever done, which was he had to. It was a great, it's like the more homophobic and deranged the preacher is, the more likely they are to be caught in a meth-fueled gay orgy. Right. The more depraved your real life is, the more of a front you need to put up if you're moving in these circles.
Right. Yeah. And, when it comes to like ingratiating himself with mostly Democrats, although I believe he donated to a few Republicans as well.
He did. He was very slick. His partner. Yeah. That's
right. It was his partner.
It was the left hand does this and the right hand does this.
Yeah, I apologize.
Yeah, the partner gave $14 million to the Republicans.
Right.
So they were having it both ways. He's giving to the Democrats. The partner is giving to the Republicans. They're covered either way. Yeah. And they were on the verge of getting favorable regulation passed in the United States. This all happened because one memo leaked showing that his hedge fund was holding a lot of FTX's cryptocurrency, and that if anything happened with the value of that cryptocurrency, it was going to collapse the value of the hedge fund. And it started a classic run on the bank where everybody started to want to pull their money out. When you look at everything that's happening with crypto, we're re-articulating why we have banking regulations. We're just recreating the 1920s.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, here's an exchange between Bankman-Fried and Kelsey Piper, who is a reporter for Vox. And she started DMing back and forth with him on Twitter. Which Vox,
to their credit, because they did get money from him, they printed all this, and it's pretty damning.
They printed all this.
Matt Taibbi had a great line on this in his article about summing up the week, where he described this as you can almost hear him doing rails of coke when you read this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So this is Kelsey Piper in the blue here. So the ethics stuff, mostly affronts. People will like you if you win and hate you if you lose, and that's how it all really works. Yeah. I mean, that's not all of it, but it's a lot. The worst quadrant, pardon me, is sketchy and lose. The best is win, ? Clean and lose is bad, but not terrible. Okay, yeah. I mean, I see where Matt Taibbi's coming from, actually. You were really good at talking about ethics for someone who kind of saw it all as a game with winners and losers. Yeah, I had to be. It's what reputations are made of to some extent. I feel bad for those who get fucked by it. Yeah, sure. By this dumb game we woke Westerners play, where we say all the right shibboleths, and so everyone likes us. That's really, I mean, that explains not just him and not just economics. It really explains who's in charge. It really explains who runs the world right now, right? And that's what that is not as directly, but you talked about Anand's book. That's kind of what he's getting at too. This idea of no. We, the rich, are your partners in creating a better world. You don't have to topple us. You don't have to overthrow us to create a better world. We're going to help you do it. That's why we have all this money, because we're the smartest ones. That's how we've earned the money. And now we are the smartest ones when it comes to distributing it according to how we see the world taking shape. And our vision of the world is for everyone to prosper. And so join us. Join us. Don't tax us. Don't come at us. Don't be mean. Right?
Right.
Don't say we shouldn't exist. No, help us. Help us help you. That's their motto. And that's what that's basically, he puts it the way a douchebag in a t-shirt and, shorts who lives in the Bahamas would put it. But that's what he's saying there. That's exactly what he's saying there.
In a $40 million
The ethics are a masquerade. All talk of ethics is a facade. It's all bullshit. I ranted about this last time, so I won't get too into this, but this is what business school is. This is what, corporate social responsibility is. When Nike, after George Floyd dies, Apple comes out, we at Apple believe Black Lives Matter. We at Nike, Black Lives Matter. This, that. This is all to create the false impression that corporations exist to change the world, exist for a reason that transcends the profit motive. And of course, they don't. They exist to make money. They are inhuman entities that exist to turn a profit. And all of the woke signaling, all of the sponsorships with this advocacy group and that advocacy group, all the donations to all these advocacy groups, they exist to trick you into thinking that they exist for any other reason but to turn a profit. And that's all it is.
Well, sure.
All it is. Whether what they're selling is real in the form of Nike shoes or whether it's totally fake, like a Sam Bankman-Fried.
Well, if you watch the advertisements on the Sunday morning roundtables, that is really a masterclass in this whole pose, right? Because they'll take the most evil fucking corporations in the world, like Monsanto, and make it look like they're down with the salt of the earth people out in the Midwest, and do all of these soft focus shots of families in wheat fields. Yeah, that's what Monsanto is.
Yeah,
about.
right. Yeah.
Helping the small farmer and the American family. This is why we have a total collapse in authority. This is why we have a total collapse of faith in our institutions. This is something that Thomas Frank speaks very. This is something Thomas Frank speaks very, very, very articulately about. The way things used to be, there wasn't this crazy gap between the worker and the CEO. Very often, these people lived in the same town. They lived in the same community. Look, you see these old Hollywood movies, right? They show a town hall where the rich guy in town. Look, even Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life. We're getting into the holiday season. He lived in the town. He knew everybody in the town.
Right. Well,
everyone in the town knew him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Today, you've never even fucking seen the person you work for. Right? They're who knows where they're fucking off in the Bahamas, right?
No, that's a great point. I mean, it's a different version of the point that I was making, but it's good. It's in the sense that, in the old days, right, where, yes, the railroad tycoons were vicious, blood-sucking bastards, but they were materially involved in what they were creating. They were invested in what they were creating.
Right.
Just as Mr. Potter was invested in the town. Even though he was sucking it dry, he lived there. Right. Right?
He knew the people who lived there.
He knew the people there. It was tangible. It was real, right, in that way. One thing this brought up to me is funny because you mentioned it is the holiday season now. And so now, I work. Our next segment is about gig workers, so we're going to talk all about my work in a few minutes. But, today, Sunday before Thanksgiving, you get a lot of Instacart orders. So, shopping around the supermarkets. And this time of year is where they have, like, charity organizations usually parked outside the supermarkets, like the Salvation Army or the local food bank, right?
Right.
And they'll have a little tent set up, and people can donate food outside of the supermarket. And so when you go to check out of the supermarket now, they have these bags of food, these like paper bags that are pre-packed with whatever canned beans, this or that, and you can buy them to give to the Salvation Army outside. And the cashier will always ask you as you're checking out, would you like to donate a bag of food to whatever, the local food bank? And I'm thinking, well, I mean, I couldn't buy it because I wasn't spending my money. I was working, so I was off the hook. But I feel like telling them, well, you got the food here. The truck's outside. Why can't you fucking donate? Why can't you donate? What, I have to pay retail price for this can of beans so that the Salvation Army gets a can of beans? This is what I mean. This is social responsibility, right? That is just masquerading the truth, which is that these are just blood-sucking profit machines. If they wanted the food bank to get the bag, they would take the bag out to the food bank and give it to them. They wouldn't dangle it in front of the customer's face. Here, you pay us full retail price for this food and then take it out and donate it. And if you don't do that, what the fuck is wrong with you? Where's your Christmas spirit, right? It's on you to do that, not on us.
Well, and this is the problem that they're having, because I was actually driving a horse and carriage when the Bernie Madoff story broke. And if you remember, the Bernie Madoff story broke at the same time that everything broke. It was right when the economy was collapsing.
Right.
So I was around a lot of New York Post readers, horse and carriage drivers. They tended to be those types. And they're all talking about they were very successful in directing their ire at Bernie Madoff, who was a sideshow who really had nothing to do with the systemic problems that had caused that collapse. He was irrelevant.
Exactly, right.
To the Great Recession. He was he was running a Ponzi scheme. It had nothing to do with systemic problems in the system, the way that the overall collapse did. But they very successfully directed everyone's attention at Bernie Madoff, right? And away from Chase Bank, away from Citibank, away from the people really responsible for this. And they made him the scapegoat for something that really he had nothing to do with.
Right, exactly.
I don't think that shit's working anymore. I don't think you can do that anymore. I don't think you can. The establishment does not have the authority that it once did to tell people how to frame these things. There's been a complete collapse in trust in all of the establishment, and it is well earned. And you can see that it terrifies them, and that's why they increasingly are looking for censorship. That's why increasingly they want to shut down the ability to talk about it, because that discussion does not favor them.
Please clap.